reference, what are you weighing about these days, Derek?
Hani, where you at? Am I supposed to say this? Or what?
Forget about how.
What's up, desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. And today we're discussing Derek Lunsford reveals his weight for the 2022 Mr Olympia, at least his approximate weight, and it says that he's 20 plus pounds bigger than when he weighed in at the 2021 212 Mr Olympia, which he did win under the guidance of Hani Rambod. This is obviously first move into the Open after receiving the special invite after that Pittsburgh Pro Guest Posing earlier in the year, where he wasn't slated to actually guest pose, but he did. Looked fantastic, and sort of created a hype around Derek Lunsford in 2022 and potentially being a contender for 2022 Mr Olympia. And I'll let you know why I think he definitely is. And let's listen to what Derek Lunsford had to say on his weight and what he'll be weighing at the 2022 Open Mr Olympia.
Just for reference, what are you weighing about these days, Derek?
Hani, where you at? Am I supposed to say this? Or what?
Forget about Hani.
Yeah, I've put on a considerable amount of muscle tissue this year. I would say I'm somewhere in the low mid 230s.
Nice. Okay. Lots of chicken.
Well, it was low calorie there for a while to get shredded, you know, because conditioning is important here at the Olympia. But yeah, I've definitely been putting in the fork time and the weights.
So that's awesome news to hear, because Derek Lunsford, really, he needs to come in condition as well, because all the added size is great. Being 230 something pounds is amazing. But unless he is, shredded, it's not really going to matter at all, because if he's not as conditioned as Big Ramy or a Brandon Curry, he has no hope against those guys. He needs to be harder, and he needs to bring, I suppose, a level of freshness to the stage and a very, very small waist and a crazy V-taper, which he does have. He needs to have more improved legs, and he needs to be harder from the front than he was last year, I believe, to have a chance to win the 2022 Mr. Olympia. And I'll let you know how I think he can actually do that as well, because we do have, obviously, Derek Lunsford, who guest posed earlier in the year. And I think it's been long enough now that people are starting to forget how good Derek Lunsford looked at that guest posing in Pittsburgh when he wasn't even slated to guest pose. Imagine being there in person or the night before, or whenever he's actually asked to guest pose, and thinking, okay, now I've got to get on stage. He wasn't planning on doing this, as far as we know, at least. Anyway, he did say, well, Steve Weinberg actually said on Primetime Muscle yesterday when he's interviewed, who's the head judge of the Olympia, he did say that, it wasn't planned. Big Ramy wasn't able to show up. Jim Mannion asked him, and you don't say no to Jim Mannion, because he's essentially the president of bodybuilding. He is the president of the IFBB Pro League and also the NPC as well. So he asked him. Derek Lunsford obviously said yes, and this was the result. And it was a huge boost to Derek Lunsford's career, because honestly, everyone thought, he's going to go back, do the 212, probably win it again, although I'm not so convinced, because Sean Clarita's come back better, and the fact that Derek Lunsford would have had to have suffered down to get to 212, I think he could have actually lost and came second in the 212. I think that's probably, I was 60-40, still 65-35, but he'd actually win it, so I was more leaning towards him winning it. But Sean Clarita is a beast. And maybe after we see how Sean Clarita looks in 2022, we would have said, if Derek Lunsford had to suffer down to 212, then maybe he wouldn't have actually won that contest. So this is super interesting, super exciting as well, but he is so heavy, because 230 to 235 pounds, he did say low to mid, so he's saying what, 232 to 236? Something like that. He could be well over 20 pounds bigger by the time he carbs up, and even after he water the plate. So this is insane. I'm very, very excited to see how Derek Lunsford looks at the 2022 Mr. Olympia. And let me know in the comments as well how you think he will actually do. But going through this guest posing, this is the one that people forgot. From the side there, you can see Nick Walker still has a level of thickness over Derek, but Derek is leaner as well. So that's why Derek does look more impressive. But you look at him versus Hunter. Hunter was fourth from the Olympia last year. You look at that split between the hamstring and the quad, and conditioning-wise, I think Derek is a little better, but it's not a huge amount, honestly. So this is very impressive, and I'm surprised that if he looked like this and he's still planning to do 212, but in previous years, he looked enormous as well. This is another level, but I think we're going to see a very, very good Derek Lunsford, and maybe even an Olympia winning Derek Lunsford in 2022. But let's move on to some recent. Actually, look at this. You can see the lineup here. Look at that back relaxed pose. It's clear that Derek Lunsford wins that from the waist down and the waist up as well, because you look at those quads poking out from the side. It creates a crazy X frame just on a relaxed. So that is so impressive. And also, this guest posing, it's the same time every year. Now, these guys can obviously plan for it, but it's almost like an obligation. If you get asked to do it, you do it no matter what point of your off season or whatever you're actually in. Because Brandon Curry, he did the Arnold Classic. I believe he was sort of in a health phase coming out of that. Nick Walker was just straight up in his off season. Who knows if he was in the middle of his biggest period, but he was absolutely enormous at the time. And Hunter Labrada, I think that he was getting ready to gear up to become his biggest ever at this point. So I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison. But Derek was just in his off season. You got to remember that as well. So he wasn't peaking for this, I don't believe. And he was the only one, as far as we know, who wasn't planning on doing this guest posing. So it's very, very impressive in both circumstances. But let's look at a couple of recent physique updates, and then we'll wrap up this video and ask you guys what you think and what you think will go down at the 2022 Mr. Olympia. And if you think Derek Lunsford has any chance of possibly winning that show. Now, this photo is one that sticks out at 5 days out of a Mr. Olympia, bringing the Florida vibes to Las Vegas, he says, #positive vibes. Now, we're back to freaky. Now, all these guys have freaky muscle, but when you look at some of these guys and then you compare it to like a Derek Lunsford, where those lats look like they painfully hang off his body, like it doesn't look comfortable to be Derek Lunsford in many, many ways. He's just so full, and some guys walk around with their arms out like this without these lats. He literally has no choice but to walk with his arms that far out from his body. He has no ability to bring his arms into his body. That's how crazy this guy's physique is. And I think he's a future Mr. Olympia. Not many people talk about him in that way compared to how I think they should, because he is an absolute freak. He has fresh muscle. He's actually very aesthetic as well. When you look at his physique, he's incredibly aesthetic. He has a great vacuum, tiny waist, nice like shaped rib cage and everything, huge round quads. It's not like he has a weird shaped leg even. This guy is so good, and I am so high on how he's going to do at the 2022 Mr. Olympia under the guidance of Honey Rambod. It seems like they have a winning package there, and when you look at how much his legs have actually improved, and they've improved a lot. Go back and look at old photos. I'll see if there's any up here, but that is the one area where I think he's going to improve more than anything, and just obviously the level of fullness and not having to deplete right down. When you look at him against some other good bodybuilders, he has a lot of mass. This guy's a great bodybuilder here, but not to the level of obviously Derek Lunsford. I'm trying to find some old photos of his legs, but it's all that new stuff on here now. But yeah, he's obviously worked on that, and here we go. That's sort of a down upwards angled one, so it makes him look a little bit better. But he's got now that leg is like here, and this leg is like out here somewhere. So that's not an exact representation of what his legs look like back then, but you sort of get at least a little bit of an idea compared to previous years. And here we go. Here's a comparison of his legs. So you can see 2021. If you go back to 2020, his legs were so slight. It's like he almost missed his adductors as well. So this is going to be increased in size a huge amount. I don't think anyone, apart from maybe an Andrew Jack, is beating that front double bicep at the 2022 Mr. Olympia. Now, guys, I want to encourage you, make sure you tune in Desktop Bodybuilding. Give this video a big thumbs up, smash that like button, also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding, including all my coverage of the 2022 Mr. Olympia. And this coverage is brought to you by MuscleTech. Visit muscletech.com as they launch back into bodybuilding in the best way possible when they're supporting this industry. So support them. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. I've got a ton of interviews coming up, a ton of coverage from this press conference as well, and the 2022 Mr. Olympia, including a live watch party. So make sure you stay tuned to Desktop Bodybuilding. Click the alert for that one, and I'll be giving you all the results on what's going down at the 2022 Mr. Olympia. And you can watch along as well on the live stream, and there's a link to that in the description below as well. And if you want to watch that Pittsburgh Pro Guest Posing, there's a link to that as well from earlier and in this year. So anyway, guys, that's it for this video. I'm Xavier Wills. This is Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are out.